This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. We are here back in the den today, and we are approaching our anniversary, so we're going to give you a little bit of a relationship series here today.
Let's see how this goes. You know, you write out kind of an outline, and then you're like,
No. Let me break it down how it goes. Shawn usually has this idea. Ooh, I have this idea for a podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really? You want me to get vulnerable here and right?
Yeah, but it's yes. So we're going to be vulnerable and transparent, and hopefully not get in trouble. So we'll see how this goes.
Brett will stop it if that's the case.
Yeah. But it should be good. So we're going to talk about elevating communication in relationships. So we're going to talk about, I think the biggest thing is, and this is our opinion, right? But we feel like we communicate on a higher level, right? In a romantic, business, friendship, partnership, right? All the above.
Absolutely. And
so, could define define higher level for the listeners. So how are we defining higher level?
I think for me, it's speaking from emotional clarity, not reaction, right? It's also listening to understand, not to win, which in our relationship, I've learned to, I need to listen to understand, and addressing feelings, not just facts, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last thing for me is choosing connection over wanting to be in control of things.
Define that for me. What do you mean by that?
I seek wanting to connect with you on a higher level, deeper level.
Okay. Than
trying to, I guess, in other words, win or be in control of certain situations.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's going to be good. So we're going to give you some practical tools, some advice in this episode, but not perfection. And I want to make sure I emphasize at the beginning, because we are not perfect by any means.
Definitely not perfect.
And we've learned through our mistakes more than anything. And so just some things, because we feel like we do communicate at a higher level. I think, and why I think that too is, number one, and I know we will be there someday, but we haven't done married 50 years or anything like that, but we've been married 23 next month in September. So 23 years is a long time to be married. And we've been together for 30 years, right? Or dating and married. So that's a long time. So I think we have a little bit of know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, compared to a lot of, we've broken the odds, and
we not only have been together that long, we work together. So if you can imagine, we have to communicate at a higher level without having to kill each other.
Correct. And then some of the other, there's some great podcasts out there and all that. And some of them, there's some great relationships, some great people that are in business together, but they usually don't have kids. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't have it.
Kids in the mix.
You don't have it all figured out, because if you, in fact, put in kids, marriage, working together, high school sweethearts, 30 years, it's not easy, right?
And so, not to say that we are perfect, because like you said, Shawn, we are not perfect by any means, but yes, we've somewhat figured it out and survived.
Yeah. So we're going to just define, higher level communication. And I think there's 3 different levels. So there's surface information, so just facts, logistics, just surface stuff. That's where a lot of, I think, couples start off or are. Sometimes when people have issues, and then they just start being surface. There's level 2, which is feelings and needs. So emotional,
which I mentioned.
Yeah. And then the third is values, boundaries, and then
long-term vision,
which is mutual purpose as a couple together. And I think at different times we've had we've been at all three levels.
Absolutely. I think in all relationships,
Correct.
you start at level one, and then, you grow together, and that's the goal, right? You grow together and move up to level two, and then level three, and so forth.
Yeah. But even at level three, we've had, I think, times where we were on a mutual purpose, long-term visions, and then we've gotten a little off track, and stuff like that. And then we're going to get into that and how we've gone back. And so,
absolutely.
'cause
And that's what, yes, and we can get into that. Yes.
So, but bridging from 1, 2 to 3, some tips is number one, use I statements. You've all have heard this before. Instead of you this and you did this and you are, and that doesn't land well. Just, I know from personal experience. So it's better to start off with I statements. So I'm feeling this way, or I interpreted it this way, or
And the other person, again, I'm going back to listening with the intent to understand and not to win, right? Because when your significant other is trying to give you those I statements, you can't be the one to right away fix it or correct the person, right? These are their feelings.
Something else, another tip is to name the feeling, then the need. And so, we talked about an example we had. I think it was last week, right? I said something that I had a feeling, right? But then I kind of vomited
on me.
And it was, whether it was right or wrong or out of place, it was just, I didn't express well the feeling that I was having, and then that would have helped. I took it. So I'm gonna start off with the I statement. I took it that you were dismissing me because you were pretty much telling me I was wrong for expressing that need. But I should have started off with the feeling I was having and why I was feeling that way, and then the need, right? And then he could have addressed it, and you've been more open to hearing it and all that.
So what you're saying is, and that's another tip there, is...
What you should have done is, my next tip is pause and check for understanding.
No, but what you're saying is when somebody's saying the I statement, repeat it back to them as well. So you are telling your significant other that you understand them, right? So what you're saying...
So, we're going to start off with vulnerability. And I think one thing is to communicate at a higher level within a relationship, you got to be vulnerable and transparent. And why vulnerability strengthens trust as opposed to being a risk. Being vulnerable, I think, builds the trust. It helps. Number one, it helps you trusting that other person, that you're giving them insecurities about yourself. You're trusting that they aren't going to use it against you in the future, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And in reality, people don't trust perfect, right? What they're trusting is the real you.
Yeah. Explain that.
Well, because if you're open with somebody, and you're perfect example is we had somebody come in for an interview, and he was overly confident and not humble, and you could tell that right away, right? Rather than just be transparent, he just moved here and he's a little nervous and he wants to get the job, right? If you're real with somebody, they trust that. Same thing in a relationship. If you're real with them, then you're going to build that trust.
So and I want you to, because I think this is helpful too, is why when people will say, yeah, that's fine, Joni, and that's great, but then if I do that, they may not like me, or they may find that as a weakness. And what would you say to that?
It's possible and it happens, but at the end of the day, you can't worry about that. Right?
Yeah, you can't own. It's better to be vulnerable,
who you are,
transparent.
vulnerable.
And if they
Because
can't
I
accept
think,
that, right?
because I think that, I mean, that if you're not being vulnerable with a person, then, they're, especially in the office, in our, company, like if they see that you're not being open and honest, well, they're not going to be open and honest also. And you want them to reciprocate that, right? You want them to be honest with you as well. And so I think that you can't worry about that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a practical approach to this would be like a vulnerability ladder. So you start with small disclosures. You start with small things and you build gradually to share deeper fears or desires, especially I think in a relationship, if you're dating or if you're getting to know somebody. But you can start small, right? With anything in life.
Yeah.
And then gradually grow to expressing bigger and
Absolutely. And I think it's about
fears.
taking that time, taking the time to really, spend time with that individual, because we live in such a fast-paced world where it's always go, 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 right? And like, I don't think that, couples and relationships and even, if you're growing a company, you don't spend a lot of time with your employees, right? The more time you spend with them, then you get to, be a little bit more vulnerable and take those little baby steps, right, to get to where you want.
Absolutely. So like a next practical step or approach I had written down was create safe speaking spaces. And so like, this is exactly what you're saying. And so I think in a work environment, one thing we do really well is like the
One-on-ones,
check-ins or the one-on-ones.
feedback.
Yeah, the one-on-ones and stuff like that. Those are great little check-ins, quarterly check-ins, just to have that safe space to non-judgmental, not going to be interrupted, phones away. But in a relationship,
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
So like something that really practical, easy is like at least once a week, Joni and I are having either a dinner or a lunch uninterrupted. And it's usually, that's our like safe space, dedicated time to really work on being vulnerable. And that, like last week when I brought up about, hey, I didn't handle that well. And it could have escalated in the past, it's probably escalated into bigger, when I've said a comment, right?
And
that just
believe me,
triggers.
I had to take this deep breath and like roll my eyes for a second. I'm like, oh my God, he's just being a baby. I'm just kidding.
That's pretty much what you said, and I was like, well, you're dismissing me. We were at dinner. We talked about it, went over it, and where I was coming from, and you understood, and also I had to express to you that, hey, that's the way I perceived it, that you were just dismissing me, and I really need to be heard, and it'd be nice if you would have repeated it back and said, hey, okay, this is what you're feeling. How can I help? How can I help that situation? Help that.
So, talking about vulnerability and like what it actually looks like what does that look like? In terms of like I don't know, what questions could you ask to get the conversation started?
About vulnerability? With the spouse?
Yeah.
Or with the...
We're talking about relationships, so maybe a relationship.
I think you can ask, like, how are you... I think it's about feelings. So, like, you can say, like, how are you feeling? Is there something struggling? Is there something I've said in this past week that upset you, or that maybe was a trigger that I didn't know about? Is there something I did that I could have improved? Maybe the way I said that. I think I brought that up to you last week too. I said, is there anything I've done, or how could I have said something that would have not triggered you, right, or not upset you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm struggling with something, right? And we need to talk about this. And even if it is a little bit more direct, at least okay, like, this is serious. Like, okay, like, he's feeling something, she's feeling something. Obviously, she's struggling with something. We need to make time to talk about this.
And I think some other ground rules that you can do as you're having those conversations, asking those questions, is like, listen without immediately fixing. So just if somebody's being vulnerable with you, like they're usually not asking you to immediately go fix it, right?
And I honestly, I'm glad you brought that point up, because I think men especially, they think that, if a woman's like coming to them with something, it's because they're coming to you so you can fix it. And that's not necessarily true. Like it's typically because we want to vent, right? But what I've learned is that if that's the case, I need to tell you, hey, Shawn, like I'm just venting right now. I just need you to listen. I don't need you to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. Then you get it.
Yeah.
And a couple times it's going to take you a while, because we've been there where you're still going to want to fix it, because you want to solve the problem. Yeah. But I think it's to communicate that, to say, hey, like, I just need you to listen to me. I don't need you to go in there to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Another one is to validate first and then respond second. And this is a big one for me, and I'll tell you, because usually when I'll get upset if I'm not validated. So if I'm expressing a vulnerability to you, which I did last week, and you didn't validate it first.
Man, this is something we need to go talk about tonight, because you keep bringing that one up. You're still not over it, right?
No, I'm over it. I'm over it. But what I did, but it happens because it happens a lot, and it's something that we struggle with, I think, and shows you that we're not perfect. But I expressed where I was having, like, tank was low or emotional connectedness with you, and whatever, and but you didn't validate it, right? You should have validated it first and expressed, I didn't know you were feeling that way, or whatever, and then respond with, hey, instead of you responded with, like, pretty much like, hey, like, get over it, or you're wrong. It's like, no, it's definitely not validating it. It's like the total opposite. And so then it just pisses me off. And I think if you're overwhelmed, name that you're overwhelmed, and then I think sometimes we can just get overwhelmed. I know I can in certain situations, and then I just spat out something, and rather than saying, hey, I'm overwhelmed in the moment, just again expressing, right? And not.
And I think it's important too, like, if you are gonna to the point where you're vomiting all over your spouse, right? And, like, you need to take a step back to say, you know what, like, I need to think about this for a second, because if I say this, I'm not going to be able to take it back very easily, right? And so we have a code word. It's a timeout. Like, that timeout, we got to take a break here, like, go for a walk, go take a timeout so you don't say something that you're going to regret.
Which we've done in the past, right?
Mm-hmm. I've done it in our relationship, and I've actually done it, in business also, because there's times where you just want to tell somebody something. You're like, oh my gosh, if I say this, I can't take it back, right? So
absolutely
learn to step back. All right, give me a few minutes to gather myself. Let me, gather my words before I say something.
Correct. And so, communicating at a higher level, I think, also helps you socially and helps you communicate clear, and enhances your communication and social skills and friendships, right? So both on a couple. So I feel like we do pretty well, like, in social environments as a couple, because we're talking about us communicating on a higher level. So we're talking about communicating, you and I together on a higher level, but also as a couple, and then individually, when we put ourselves in social events with friends, with business events or whatever, I feel like we communicate at a higher level because of...
Absolutely. And more so, I mean, I see it with you all the time. I'm like, how in the world did you get... somebody told you, like, they're, what they're struggling with, like, on meeting one. I'm like, like, that's, like, usually, like, meeting, like, 10. You know what I mean? But they trust you, right? And so they're telling you these things.
And I think some common tips or techniques that can help people with that is reflective listening and mirroring in conversations. So with friends and family, I think it helps reduce miscommunication and spillovers. And so so mirroring their conversation, mirroring their body language, reflective listening, I think that helps, right?
Absolutely. Listening. I mean, I think that, that's one thing that we do well, I feel, is that we listen to the other person. Like, instead of us talking about ourselves and what we're into, like, genuinely talking to the other person and asking them questions and listening to what they're having to say.
Yeah. Do you have any other practical advice that you can give people for social situations?
No.
I'll move on to the next one then. So this one's going to get us uncomfortable. So like shared experiences, right? I think to communicate at a higher level, you got to experience different, multiple scenarios, right? And experiences together. And I think and a lot of it's got to be uncomfortable experiences as well, right? Or putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, because so one might be doing events or doing things that get you out of your comfort zone. So could be a good one for us was when we took salsa lessons, right? That was a shared experience that we encountered together. Got us very out of our comfort zone. I might be half Hispanic, but I dance like a white guy, like. And,
actually, you are a pretty good dancer. I will say that.
But that not salsa, no. And so just seeing, if you probably listeners, if you don't know, but like I'm sure you do, like in salsa dancing, the male is very much the leader and leads that puts so much. To me, that puts so much pressure on the male individual. I'm not that one of those. I'm not an A personality that wants to lead and go take charge and anyways, it was uncomfortable, right? And because you had to dance when you're dancing, they teach you, but then they put you in social situations where you had to like switch partners, and then I'm the one that has to be the dominant leader with somebody. And then you're like my wife.
Sweating. Yeah. You're like.
So that's a good example. But doing stuff like that, so like travel, hobbies, projects, everything that takes teamwork and communicating together, right? Gets you. I think having those experiences.
Absolutely. And I wrote down 3 things that like going into that, like, number one, depth, right? I think having that, that emotional, like going deep, you have that emotional and physical trust. And then the adventure part, right, where there's shared experiences, the dancing, whatever it is that we're doing together. Which also kind of builds that trust, right?
Yeah. Together.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Builds that trust together.
Yeah. And then I think something that even what we did what was it, last weekend with the theme parks and the roller coasters, that was a shared experience we had as a family, but we also...
We pushed each other.
Yeah, but you and I, and we had to communicate at a higher level and communicate our fears and help each other through it. Right?
Yeah.
Sounds a lot.
But it's true though.
Yeah.
I mean, you build that trust, right?
Yeah.
And then the third thing that I realize is it also brings like stability into a relationship. Like the predictability and feeling safe, right?
Yeah, I agree. I had wrote some. I don't know if I'm not going to skip it. It's just not. It's not going to go well.
It's not appropriate.
No, it's just. It was interesting.
You're being a man.
Yes, that's what my head thinks. But it was about experiences with. I think I was thinking when I wrote it down. It was more about like as a couple. I'm trying because you and I communicate at a higher level, right? That's the whole thing, and how so. Trying to write down why does Shawn and Joni communicate at a higher level? Why? It's funny because if you're around us long enough, a lot of people end up combining our names and like calling us Shoni and John, or because they think of us as one and together and like all the time, and so it's kind of, and that's always been our thing, and so but. One thing that I was getting to, and when I wrote down all this, was like something like I think we are connected on both multiple levels, and I think that's what helps our communication. And so, like, we're willing to talk and be vulnerable and transparent in all areas, right?
Yeah.
Which includes what people see and what people see behind the door, right? And so, I mean, but like, even I think it's important for couples, and I know it doesn't get talked about a lot, and I don't know if I really feel comfortable talking about this on a podcast, but you know, I think we have a great sex life, and I think that's important in a marriage, and I think you got to be able to talk about all aspects.
You're getting red right now.
Am I really?
You're bright red right now.
It's hot in here. We need to turn up the AC, but it's important, right? I think it's a big aspect to relationships. And if you're going to be married, if you're going to be together 30 years and married 23,
You gotta spice it up.
it's got to spice it up. And so I think, you know,
Turn it up a bit.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate you, and that you've always tried to spice things up. Keep, you know, after 23 years, it's not, you know, like, you keep it fresh, right? And you keep it, and it's exciting, and I'm attracted to you physically and emotionally and everything else. But you also do a big part in helping with that. And
Well, thank you.
yeah, and but I mean, I mean, you keep it, yeah, whether it's, I wrote down some stupid things, but like role playing and dressing up and trying new things and having fun with it, right? Because
Well, I just like for you to shop for me and have my outfits ready.
yeah. So, and dressing up, and when you go out to dinner, you dress up, you know, and you have fun with it, and it keeps the spice and energy alive in your marriage. And so I think that, and you got to be able to communicate that. So we're talking about communicating at a higher level. Like, hey, I'll express to Joni what I truly desire
Yeah.
and see in her, and want her to dress up for me, or do this, or do this in the bedroom. And I, you know, and that's being vulnerable, and that's being open, and same back to me, and she does the same. And so, like, but it keeps that connectedness and that higher level, right? So we'll move on. So let's move on. We talked enough about that. So the next point I had was building unshakable trust, right? So some of the core elements are reliability, consistency, honesty, repairing after missteps. I think this is important, right? If you're going to communicate at a higher level, you got to have a really unshakable trust in each other.
100%.
So some practices is I think being very transparent on everything. So you and I are transparent in all areas of our life. So that develops that really unshakable. There's nothing that
Being clear.
You have access to my phone. I have access to your phone. There's nothing we don't hide from each other. There's nothing, you know,
Right.
we're not, calendars, appointments, everything. We're open. We know each other. You know, we don't hide from anything. We don't. Right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Transparency, being clear.
Yeah.
You know, also consistent.
Yeah.
Holding each other accountable, right? When we're not, and I know there's times where you're like, Joni, like that's not right, right? Like, call it out. That's what builds trust.
Absolutely. I think you got to have some like kind of repair rituals after conflict of things you do to try to repair things. So a good one was earlier today. I said a comment that kind of offended you, but I acknowledged that it offended you, even though I was like, was no big deal in my eyes, but it was a big deal to you. And I, instead of saying it's not a big deal, I just said, hey, I apologize. You know, I shouldn't have said that way. That was my mistake, right?
Yeah, and that was good of you. I mean, 10 years ago, you'd be like, what do you mean? Like, this was about it.
So I think those quick 1-minute apologies, recapping how you could do things differently, right? And how you could approach it, and asking the other person, hey, how could I have said this differently, or that wouldn't have triggered or done that, right?
Absolutely.
I think repairing things after we're all going to make mistakes, right? And so we got to, how do you build and hold that trust? you got to acknowledge the impact. I think that's a big one, is acknowledging it. It's hard for me to do at times, is acknowledge that
It's hard for me too sometimes, but
avoiding blaming language or blaming the others.
pointing the fingers. Yeah.
I have a tendency to do that a lot, instead of just owning it and taking responsibility for how I participated in the difficult. If I did something wrong, I need to acknowledge where I was wrong. Even if I was more wrong, there's no such thing. But like, there's times I feel like, and I think this is normal couple stuff. Like, you feel like you were more wrong than them, and so it's like they need to do all the apologizing. But it's like, acknowledge where you were wrong in this situation and own it and apologize.
And then I will say the last, yes, I agree 100% with that. Taking account, that's the accountability part, right? And then also, like, quick check-ins, right? And like making that time for each other.
You do a very good job of that. I think you'll check in. You can sense when my emotions or my mood is off or something, and you'll be able to check in.
Yeah, I think that's on both sides. I think it's important that your relationship, your spouse well enough to know when there is something wrong, right? Because and again, going back to we're all busy, right? There's things that are going on, but you need to put that phone down. You need to spend time, one-on-one time, fixing if there is an issue, fix it right away rather than letting it go on. Because the longer that you let it go on, the more resentment that person has. And so I'm all about trying to fix it as quick as possible.
Yeah. Something that I think that we've had to experience the last, I would say, 5 years of our marriage was...
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Personal goals.
Yeah, well, maintaining individuality and personal growth. So I remember a big thing about this different levels was level 3 is having a mutual growth and mutual direction. And I think for a very long time, Joni and I were like, we were just driven on mutual goals and driven on, and it was mainly business, but we both were just this is what we're doing, this is our focus, this is where we're headed.
And we're doing this together, right?
And it was very, very strong. And that's what helped us, helped our success. But at the same time,
as you grow as an individual, right, then you for us anyway, we had individual goals as I can say for myself, right?
I think you had individual goals. Let's just preface that, right?
Okay. You didn't have individual. I had individual.
I still had our business goals and partnership goals, but go ahead.
But you had to learn how to be supportive in that.
Correct.
And that could be hard for some couples like that are drifting, but can't seem to find that path back, right? Not to say, we're still one and we still have goals together. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's okay to have your own personal goals, and it's okay for your spouse to be able to support that.
Correct.
What tips can you give others out there that may be struggling with that?
Number one, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So part of it was an error on both of our parts. I committed to saying, hey, if you want to go do a fitness competition, go for it. I don't
want any part of it.
I don't have the same desire. I want to be healthy and all that, but I don't have no desire to go up on stage and compete and do all that. So it was your deal, and it was an individual. I don't think we knew what we were signing up for, so the expectations weren't very clear. So I think the more you can define the expectation of what it's going to take or what's going to be required on both sides, that'd be better. So
and that was a fault. That my fault was not setting those expectations, not just with you, but with the family, right? Sure. Because it was really not an individual thing. Like, it really impacted everybody else.
Correct. It could just the time, the focus, the energy, everything went towards that, which is a very individual. And we took it as it was more like you're taking from us. So I think so the second time around, I think it was more, but at the same time, I took that as a negative, and then I wasn't supported back. So the first time around, so what I learned was that I needed to be supportive more, and just, hey, you signed up for this, you acknowledged, yes, you didn't know, but that's on your fault too, right? Or you agreed. So let's suck it up, and let's be supportive. And
right.
So I don't think I was as supportive. So I learned to appreciate more your individual passions, and then I grew through that process, and so then I knew the second time around how I could support better, how I could be. So part of it was just we didn't know what we didn't know,
right?
But sometimes that's hard, and you're going through it. You don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, and I think, yes, it's okay to have your own personal goals, but you also, like for me, what I learned from it is that I have to be aware of, the impact that it's going to have on you, the impact that it's going to have on my family, like what it's going to take away from, right? And that's the thing is like, if we're all on the same page and say, okay, like, this is what it's going to take, right? It's going to take, training 2 days, twice a day, eating like healthy, like chicken every single day, right? If I set those expectations and saying like, okay, I can't go out either. There's no going out, right? Which with our friends, like I have to say no. So you got to be okay with that. Yeah, so being aware that it's going to not just, it's going to impact everybody else around me.
Correct.
Right.
So
and
there's got to be shared values and boundaries that around the commitments it's going to take.
Yeah.
And
you got to be okay.
Especially as a husband and wife. You can't just go making those commitments and setting those boundaries or stuff without a full commitment.
Exactly.
So then it just shared, again, goes back to being a shared vision.
Exactly.
Even though it's an
so
individual
it might be an individual goal, but it's still shared because you're sharing that experience together.
Correct. I think, yeah. So that's in a personal example that we went through. I think speaking, when you wanted to really become like a speaker for a while, and so you committed to a lot of like engagements, which included a lot of travel, which put a lot of stress on me managing the business and then the family, and then the family and all that. It just like, man, it was just exhausting you're not having you around to help. And so again, it wasn't the clear expectations, and it wasn't it wasn't something we were both passionate. You thought it was still, you were helping the businesses by speaking, but at the same time, I didn't agree with that same, I didn't have that same value or vision. And so that caused a lot of conflict. And part of it's like learning from those experiences, learning from those experiences, and then saying, hey, okay, how could we approach this better? How could this, and then we came to it, like you said, you know what, I tried it. It was okay, but here, it wasn't healthy for my marriage, wasn't healthy for me. Here's what I can do better, and here's what I can commit to and what I can't. And so you changed a lot of your. And
sometimes you have to learn the hard way, right? You have to go all in, and that's part of growing. That's part of growth, right? You can't be afraid to do something, like try it, and then if it's not right, then we make a course correction and get on the same page, which we have many times, right? Again, it's not about being perfect. You're going to make mistakes, but you have to be willing to communicate. And if you want to communicate at a higher level, you have to be on the same page. Absolutely.
And then I think take time outs and time to share those conflicts, work through them, and maybe take a break if it's needed. Because again, what's most important is it some of those individual things, or is it still maintaining a marriage and a family and all that? So if it requires you to pause for a minute, I think that's important to fix it, figure out learn from it, and then course correct, and then come back.
100%.
So let's talk about just quickly, let's wrap up with sharing some tools, templates for everyday practices for people can improve their listening. So
date nights, number one.
Correct.
You need to spend that time, guys.
I think daily. So let's start daily. So let's start with the daily check-ins, right?
Yeah.
I think Joni and I, even though get this, we work together. I see her in the morning, I see her throughout the day, and I go home and I still see her. But
hey, you love that though, right?
I do.
You love to
but get this.
Go to lunch every day with me in my office.
Let me come back.
Okay.
But I love our daily check-ins, right? If I don't feel like I or you don't check in a couple times throughout the day, I'll mention it to you, right?
Oh yeah.
But hey, you know what? You didn't come by my office once today to give me a kiss, say hi, check in, nothing, right? And I might have gone to your office twice, but I'll let you know if you don't.
You will let me know for sure.
And keeping it.
And
fresh.
then I'll have to do some self-reflection, like that. Okay, like breath. I need to put my phone down. I need to like stop working for a second and take 2 minutes and go say hi. Go give them a kiss. Go sit, in the chair and just talk.
And if you don't work together, it could be just text, a phone call at lunch, and just check in. I think you should do some check-ins throughout the day. Maybe too much for some people, but I think it helps. Weekly relationship meetings or dinners, date nights.
I love our Fridays at Perry's, even though I can't drink wine right now because I'm doing another competition, which Sean's been very supportive of.
Thank you.
I still love our Fridays eating a steak.
Yeah, so I think weekly date nights are very important. Again, the I statements, focusing on I feel this way when blank, or because I need this, and be willing to have those kind of requests and conversations with each other. Because it will happen, you will have those feelings, and you got to be able to learn to express it correctly, and you got to be willing to receive it and acknowledge it and admit it, right?
Exactly. Without rolling your eyes, guys, ladies.
Journaling, I think journaling helps, right? Just writing down how you're feeling. You'll learn from when you write it down, read back. Sometimes you'll
oh gosh, I mean, I've got journals, and I'll go back to them and kind of read some of the like how I was feeling like 5-10 years ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really have grown a lot.
So you're admitting you were a mess.
I'm much more mature now.
So you're admitting it was all you. Finally.
I'm admitting
this is being recorded.
I'm admitting that yes, I've got some issues. I'm not perfect, and I've grown from it.
Yeah. And so I think a good exercise that everybody can practice is just each partner outlines one small communication challenge and one big growth opportunity, and then you pick on one of those issues or those challenges to work on the next week, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's healthy. So if each partner just picks something, small communication thing, the challenge that you guys had that week, and then work on how we can improve it.
Yeah, and it might sound silly to you, thinking like, yeah, right, that's not gonna happen. Like, just try it, okay? Try it. If it doesn't work, then you don't have to do it. But try it. I promise you, it's gonna be helpful.
Yeah, and just remember that always start small, consistent little shifts that they compound over time.
Yeah,
so just anything in life is that way.
Can't conquer.
Yeah, you can't eat an elephant in
one bite.
So just know that anything in life, even working on your relationship, you just make small, compounded, consistent efforts and change. And it'll improve. And hopefully you all are speaking at a higher level.
Not just in your relationship. That will help you in life, guys. Yeah, right?
So hopefully that all landed somewhere, and you took some nuggets from that. If not, just don't worry about it, move on. But hopefully you can have all better relationships and improve and learn from our mistakes. And so anything last minute thing to share? No?
Cheers to communicating at a higher level.
Awesome. So thank you all for listening. Share it with somebody that you think might get something out of it. And we appreciate all you listening, and we'll see you all next week.
See you, everyone.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkle. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.